My name is Daniel Cole. I'm 62 years old, and I've got a limp that's followed me around for the better part of 15 years. It came from a job site accident, a scaffolding collapse that took my balance, half my savings, and the easy part of walking. I was a foreman back then, good at what I did, proud of it. Now I'm the superintendent of a small apartment building on the east side, the kind of place where the paint always smells faintly of mold, no matter how many coats you throw on. I fix leaks, unclog drains, and make sure people's rent checks get logged properly. It's quiet work, honest work. It lets me keep to myself. Until that night, I thought I knew my family. I thought the distance between us was just the natural kind. Kids growing up, chasing better lives, forgetting the old man who raised them. Turns out, the truth was meaner, sharper, like the edge of that glass that Andrew threw at me. The dinner happened at Lily's condo, the kind of sleek, sterile place that doesn't look lived in. All glass walls and straight lines, the furniture too modern to be comfortable, the kind of place where silence feels louder than it should. Lily always liked appearances. She was the kind of kid who ironed her school uniforms even when they didn't need it, who cried if a guest saw our old couch with the tear in the armrest. I used to think it was endearing, that she wanted better. I didn't realize she'd trade her soul for it. I got there at 7 sharp, a bottle of red tucked under my arm. It wasn't expensive, but it was decent, something that still tasted like grapes instead of chemicals. I'd even shaved for the occasion, combed what was left of my hair. I figured it might be nice, a rare evening with the family. Maybe even the kind of night where we could pretend things were still simple. But the moment Lily opened that door, I knew I'd made a mistake. She was dressed all in white, like some sort of self-help guru, yoga pants, silk top, and that thin-lipped smile she wears in her videos. "Dad," she said, voice clipped, eyes scanning me up and down. "You're late." I wasn't. The clock in my truck had just turned 6:55 when I parked outside. But I didn't argue. I'd learned a long time ago that arguing with Lily meant losing twice, once out loud, and once later when she told everyone how difficult I was being. So I just nodded and stepped inside. The place smelled like store-bought candles and catered food pretending to be home cooking. Evan was on the couch, thumb flicking across his phone, face lit up by the screen. He barely looked up. His fiancée, Bree, stood by the window, posing against the skyline, her phone angled just right to catch the glow of the city. She looked perfect. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect disinterest. "Daniel," she said. Not Dad, not even Mr. Cole. Just Daniel, like we were co-workers she didn't like very much. "You can put the wine in the kitchen. We're drinking champagne tonight." Her tone made it clear my corner store bottle didn't belong. I set it on the counter anyway, beside the spread of catered dishes laid out like props. Everything gleamed. Polished plates, crystal glasses, folded napkins that looked too fragile to use. It was all surface, no warmth, just like them. Then Andrew came out. Shirt half-buttoned, hair slicked back. That smug grin he gets after a few drinks. "There he is," he said, loud enough to make sure everyone heard. "The old man himself." I nodded. "Andrew." He stretched his arms wide, mock-friendly. "Grab me a beer, would you?" I hesitated. It was a simple request, but there was something in the way he said it. A test. The kind that lets him feel powerful. I didn't move. Lily touched my arm. "Dad, please, let's just have a nice evening." So I got him a beer, and another one 20 minutes later. And by the time dinner was served, some quinoa and veggie mix with foam on top like it was trying to be something it wasn't, he was already slurring around the edges. Every time he wanted something, he snapped his fingers. "Bread," snap. "Water," snap. "Hot sauce," snap. And I brought it. Not because I wanted to, but because I could feel Lily's eyes on me, silently begging me not to make a scene. Evan sat there the whole time, grinning like he was watching a show. Bree kept her phone out, pretending to film the meal, but I could tell she was catching Andrew's little humiliations. Maybe she thought it was funny. Maybe she thought it would play well on her feed. The authentic family moment. Then came the wine. Andrew pushed his glass toward me, the motion sloppy, careless. Top me off. I looked at the bottle. Empty. He'd drained most of it himself. I think you've had enough, I said. Silence hit the table like a hammer. Lily froze mid-breath. Evan looked up. Bree stopped recording. Andrew blinked, the words rolling around in his head like he couldn't quite believe what he'd heard. What did you just say to me? I met his eyes. I said I think you've had enough. He stood up so fast, his chair hit the floor with a crack. For a second, I thought he'd just shout. Instead, he grabbed the glass by the stem and threw it. It caught me above the ear, sharp and hot, the world tilting with the impact. The sound it made, glass against skin, then tile, is something I'll never forget. Servants should know their place, he roared. I reached up. My fingers came away red. Andrew, oh my God! He disrespected me in my own home, Andrew barked, chest heaving. It's Lily's home, I said. My voice was steady, calm, too calm. Evan stood up, face unreadable. Dad, maybe you should go. I looked at him, my boy, who used to follow me around job sites with a plastic hard hat and a grin. He couldn't even meet my eyes. Bree turned her camera away, like the sight of me bleeding ruined the shot. Lily stood there trembling, tears streaming silently. Not one of them moved toward me. Yeah, I said finally. I think I should. I walked out. Nobody stopped me. Nobody apologized. Behind me, Andrew started laughing again, the sound echoing off the glass walls as the elevator doors closed. The drive home took 40 minutes. I pressed a napkin against my ear, watching the light smear across the windshield. By the time I parked, the bleeding had stopped. My head throbbed in rhythm with my heartbeat. I climbed out, limping more than usual, and made my way inside. The building was quiet. Most tenants were asleep. Just the hum of the old radiator and the faint buzz of the streetlights outside. I poured myself a whiskey. No glass flung, no pretense, no filters. Just the kind of drink that doesn't need to impress anyone. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at nothing. The silence was heavy, but not empty. It was thinking silence. Then it hit me. 3 months ago, Lily had come by with papers. I'd been tired. Pipe burst in 3B, long day, wet shoes. She'd said something about retirement planning, about making sure you're protected, Dad. I'd trusted her. Signed where she told me. Never asked questions. She'd hugged me afterward. Told me she loved me. That was the last time she'd hugged me at all. I got up, went to the drawer where I keep everything that matters. The folder was right there, labeled neatly in her handwriting. Financial and legal documents. I opened it, thumbed through. Power of attorney, both financial and medical. All signed by me. All naming Lily as the one in charge. My stomach turned. Then I saw it. A document I didn't recognize. Half filled out, Lily's handwriting again. Application to declare an individual mentally incompetent. My name on the line marked subject. Her signature on the petitioner line, half-formed, like she'd been interrupted. I flipped the page. There was more. A printed email, paper clipped to the back, from Evan Cole to Lily Cole. Subject, the apartment situation. I read it once, then again, then a third time. Once we get him declared, we can sell his place. The building's rent-controlled, but the supers unit converts to market rate with new ownership. We're looking at $400K, maybe more. Split 3 ways after costs. Bree's already talked to a lawyer. I sat back in my chair. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. Every laugh, every cold shoulder, every fake smile from the past year fell into place like puzzle pieces. They hadn't been distant. They'd been preparing, waiting, turning me into a problem to solve, a number to divide. I didn't drink the rest of the whiskey. I didn't throw the glass. I didn't shout. I just sat there. The anger was quiet, heavy and patient, like something waking up after a long sleep. I'd been their servant, their embarrassment, their stepping stone, and they'd thought I'd just fade away, too tired to fight. Around 1 a.m, I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind that comes when the truth finally settles in your bones. I looked around my small apartment, the tools on the shelf, the smell of oil and dust, the things I'd fixed with my own hands. My kingdom, small as it was. "You want me gone?" I said softly, to no one. "Fine, let's see how you like me awake." The words hung in the air, solid as stone. Because that night, I stopped being their father, the quiet, limping man they pitied and used. That night, I became something else entirely. As the story unfolds, take a moment to like, subscribe, and write in the comments. Would you forgive them or walk away? The wedding was 3 weeks later. Evan and Bree's big day, 200 guests, a reception hall downtown with marble floors polished to mirror shine, ice sculptures shaped like swans melting under spotlights, the kind of place where the waiters wear white gloves and the napkins are folded into roses. I got my invitation in the mail a week after the incident at Lily's place. It came with a handwritten note from Bree, neat cursive, perfumed paper. "We're seating you with Aunt Margaret. She's hard of hearing, so you'll have someone to sit with quietly." The words looked polite, but the message underneath was clear. Stay out of sight, stay out of the photos, don't ruin the brand. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, the invitation between my fingers. Part of me wanted to throw it away, but another part, the one that had survived job sites, broken bones, and betrayal, decided I'd go. I wanted to look them all in the eye one more time, sober and steady, before whatever came next. If they thought I was senile, they'd see just how wrong they were. I wore my best suit, the gray one I'd bought 15 years ago for a union banquet. It was a little tight in the shoulders, but clean. Pressed it myself the night before, shined my shoes, the same pair I'd worn to Lily's college graduation. I even splurged on a haircut and a splash of cologne I hadn't used in years. I wanted to look respectable, sharp, like a man who still had his dignity and his mind. The church they'd chosen was one of those grand downtown cathedrals with stained glass windows and a choir loft high enough to make your neck ache looking up. I'd never heard either of them talk about religion before, but I guess image mattered more than faith. Bree glided down the aisle in a dress that could have paid off my mortgage, lace cascading like frost. Evan stood at the altar, tuxedo crisp, grin rehearsed. When the priest asked if anyone objected, I felt 200 heads turn just slightly in my direction, the air thick with expectation. I smiled, folded my hands, and stayed quiet. The reception started at 6. The hall glittered like a jewelry box. Crystal chandeliers, candlelight flickering off glassware, music low and syrupy. I found my seat in the far corner. Table 19, the last one by the wall. Aunt Margaret was already there, tiny and hunched, wrapped in a shawl despite the heat. She smiled when I sat down, eyes watery behind thick glasses. "Daniel, dear," she said too loudly, "and what do you do for work these days?" "I'm a superintendent," I said, leaning closer. "Oh, that's nice. A school?" "No, an apartment building." She nodded, pretending she'd heard. 5 minutes later, she asked the same question again, and again after that. The other chairs at our table stayed empty. People walked past us like we were furniture. I watched my children work the room. Evan, the golden boy, laughing too loud, shaking hands with his business partners. Bree, radiant and brittle, posing for photos with her bridesmaids, every smile identical. Lily in emerald green, pretending everything was perfect. Andrew glued to her side, refilling his glass every 10 minutes. They were all actors now, each playing a part in a production they thought I didn't understand. Dinner was filet mignon and lobster tail. I barely touched mine. The speeches started right after dessert. Evan's fraternity friend telling stories about wild college nights. Bree's father choking up about his little girl finding her forever. The best man cracking jokes about loyalty and brotherhood. Then, Evan took the microphone. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he said, his voice smooth as a politician's. "Family means everything to Bree and me. We believe in taking care of each other, in unity, in trust." I stopped listening. I'd heard those words before, just not from his mouth. They were the same ones he'd used in that email, the one about taking care of me by selling my home. Family means everything, he'd written then, too. It made me almost laugh. When the music started again, I stayed in my seat, nursing a glass of water. The band played Sinatra. Couples danced. Evan and Bree spun in the center of the floor, her dress flashing like a diamond every time the light hit it. People clapped, toasted, cheered. I sat back and waited. Something inside me, something quiet and steady, said the night wasn't done with me yet. It was around 9 when they came. Bree first, then Evan, Lily, and Andrew trailing behind like backup. The 4 of them stopped by my table, blocking the light. Their smiles were gone. "Daniel," Bree said, voice sweet as poison, "we need to talk about something." "Here?" I asked. "Now?" "It's important." Her tone dropped a note lower. "It's about your living situation. We've been worried." A few people nearby slowed their conversations, sensing something. I set my glass down. "I live in my apartment," I said evenly. "Same place for 20 years. "That's the thing," Evan said, stepping closer, hands in his pockets like a man breaking bad news. "Dad, we don't think it's safe anymore. The stairs, your hip." "I live on the ground floor," I said. "No stairs." "Still," Bree said, tilting her head, that rehearsed empathy sliding into place. "We've found a wonderful facility, assisted living, very nice. It's got everything, nurses, activities, other seniors your age. And we thought, well, the wedding's the perfect time to make the transition, fresh beginnings." "I'm not going anywhere." Her smile faltered. "Daniel, we're not asking." "Then what are you doing?" "We're trying to help you," Lily said softly. Her voice trembled. I couldn't tell if it was guilt or fear. "Before something bad happens." I looked at her, at all of them standing there like a tribunal. "Like what?" Andrew stepped in, drunk courage in his eyes. "Like you falling, getting confused, forgetting to pay bills, leaving the stove on." "I don't forget bills. I fix the damn stove." "You're getting old," Bree said, and there it was, the real tone, stripped of sweetness. "You can't take care of that place anymore, and we need your keys, the apartment keys, for the newlyweds' future." She held out her hand, palm up, nails gleaming. "Be reasonable." The chatter around us quieted. I could feel phones lifting, cameras catching the tension. Someone whispered, "What's happening?" The DJ's music faded just enough to make their voices carry. "No," I said. Bree blinked. "Excuse me?" I said no. Her face hardened. The mask cracked. She stepped forward and slapped me. Not hard enough to break skin, just enough to sting, to shame, enough to make a statement. "Give me the keys, old man." The sound echoed across the room like a gunshot. I stood slowly, chair scraping against the floor. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then I stepped past her, past Evan's outstretched hand, and walked toward the DJ booth. The kid running the music couldn't have been more than 20. His eyes went wide when I tapped his shoulder. "Can I use that?" I said, nodding toward the microphone. "Sir, I don't think—" "Please." He must have seen something in my face because he handed it over without another word. I walked to the center of the dance floor, the crowd parting around me like water. The music cut off. All that was left was the hum of the air conditioning and the click of cameras. I tapped the mic. "Hi," I said, my voice steady through the speakers. "I'm Daniel Cole, father of the groom. I wasn't asked to give a speech, but I'm going to share something anyway." Evan was already moving toward me, panic in his eyes. Bree followed, face pale. "My children," I said, "are very concerned about me, about my health, my finances. That's kind of them. Except..." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a folded stack of papers. "Except I found something interesting last month. An email about selling my apartment. Forged documents to declare me mentally incompetent. Plans to put me away and split the money." Gasps rippled through the room. The kind of sound that happens when people realize the show isn't scripted anymore. "The wedding you're attending," I went on, "was paid for with money Evan borrowed against his firm's credit line. He told them it was for a business expansion. It wasn't. The so-called charity Bree promotes online, the one she says helps single mothers, doesn't exist. The donations go to an account she controls. And my daughter Lily, she runs a wellness business based on guides she stole from licensed therapists. Even the name of her brand, taken from a Canadian company she never thought to check." Evan lunged for the mic. I sidestepped, voice rising. "They wanted me gone, quiet. They wanted my life converted into cash. So when Bree here asks for my keys, she's not asking for a home. She's asking for $400,000 that isn't hers. Phones everywhere now, flashes, people whispering, filming. Bree's face drained of color, Evan shouting, 'He's sick! He's confused!' Lily covering her mouth, tears starting. Andrew swaying, glass in hand, too drunk to realize the damage was already done. "I have the emails," I said. "The forged documents, everything. Anyone who wants to see, I'll make copies." I handed the microphone back to the DJ and started toward the exit. My heart was pounding, but not from fear. It was the rush of something I hadn't felt in years. Control. That's when I saw Frankie Vega. He was standing near the doors, arms crossed, face unreadable. Frankie, an old friend from the electrical union days, back before my leg went bad, before everything fell apart. We used to call him Iron Hands because he could bend a conduit pipe barehanded. We'd lost touch after I left the trade, but last year I'd called him to help fix a building security system. We'd had coffee afterward, talked about old times, realized neither of us had many people left to count on. I'd called him that morning, told him everything, about the dinner, the documents, the wedding. I didn't tell him what I planned to say, but I told him I might need backup if things got ugly. He didn't hesitate. "I'll be there," he'd said. "Front row." Now he walked to the center of the floor, slow and steady. The crowd parted for him, too. He was 6'3", 220, built like a man who'd never stopped working with his hands. His face was calm, but his eyes could cut steel. "Which one of you laid hands on Danny Cole?" he said. No one answered. He scanned the faces in front of him, Evan's panic, Bree's fury, Andrew's drunken smirk, Lily's tears. "I'll ask once more," he said. "Who hit him?" Bree's voice came out small. He was being unreasonable. "You?" Frankie pointed. "You slapped a 62-year-old man at your own wedding?" "It wasn't..." "I saw it," he said. "It's on half a dozen phones in this room. You think that video's going to look good next to your influencer posts?" She went pale. Evan tried to step in. "This is a family matter." "No," Frankie said. "This is a criminal matter. Your father's competent. He's employed. He owns his residence free and clear. What you're planning is called elder abuse, theft by deception, fraud, and now it's public." Evan's mouth opened and closed. "We weren't..." "Yes, you were." Frankie's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "And if any of you try this again, if you harass him, show up at his building, send a threatening message, I'll make sure the police, the district attorney, and every news outlet in this city know exactly what you tried to do." He turned to the crowd. "Everybody hear that?" A murmur of agreement, cameras still rolling. Good, Frankie said. Then you're all witnesses. He looked at me, gave a short nod. I walked toward him. Together we left the hall. Behind us, voices rose, crying, shouting, the clatter of something breaking. The wedding was over. Outside, the night air was cold and clean. Frankie's truck was parked under a streetlight, engine idling. I climbed in beside him. My hands were still shaking, though whether from adrenaline or relief, I couldn't tell. You okay? He asked, watching me. No, I said, but I will be. He nodded, put the truck in gear. What do you need, Danny? I looked out the window. The city lights blurred past, gold and blue, like fire and ice. I thought about the papers in my jacket, about the look on Bree's face, about the laughter that used to fill my house when my kids were small, about how far we'd all fallen. I need to make sure they never try this again. Frankie's grip tightened on the wheel. Then let's build a case. We drove back to my apartment in silence, the radio off, the hum of the road steady beneath us. Somewhere between downtown and the east side, the first hint of dawn began to bleed into the sky, gray light stretching over the city. Neither of us said it out loud, but we both knew the same thing. Tonight hadn't been the end of anything. It was the beginning of a war. The next morning I woke to the tiny, insistent storm that modern life brings. 17 missed calls, their red numbers blinking at me like tiny accusations. Evan, Lily, unknown numbers. A few from numbers I didn't recognize at all. I didn't answer. I wanted the silence to hold long enough for my head to stop pounding and for the idea of what I was about to do to feel, if not right, then at least deliberate. Frankie showed up at 8 on the dot like he always did, coffee in a paper cup, bagels in a white paper bag. He set them on my kitchen table without ceremony and sat across from me, watching the way I spread out my life like cards on felt. The forged power of attorney lay there, edges still crisp from the photocopier. The printed emails, typed lines that read like a conspiracy, were fanned out beside photos I'd taken of the split above my ear where Andrew's glass had kissed me. I'd even gotten a copy of the security footage from Lily's building. I knew the super from a boiler problem I'd fixed last year, and he'd trusted me enough to slip me a thumb drive. This is good, Frankie said after a long minute. He'd been staring, really staring, as if the papers might change into something else. This is real evidence. Enough for the police? I asked. We can make it enough, he said carefully. But cops move slow, and rich kids have lawyers. You want them arrested, or you want them stopped? The words landed on me like a hand on a shoulder. There was the justice I'd been taught to trust, official, procedural, slow. And then there was the other kind, the sort that made people squirm in their sleep because they'd been exposed. I want them to feel, I said. I want them to understand what they tried to do. Erased? Frankie asked. The word was half a joke, half a test. No, I said. Scared, small, helpless, not with fists, never with fists, but with the truth, with consequences. I want the life they tried to build on my ruin to tremble. Frankie smiled then, not the kind of smile you'd share at a diner table, but the kind that situated a plan in his head like a metal tool snapping into place. Okay, then we do this smart. We worked for hours. Frankie's experience in security and investigations made him methodical. He wrote on a legal pad with a thick black pen and drew boxes and arrows and lists. I narrated my memory of the last year, every small indignity, every repayment that never came, the ways they'd joked about converting the supers unit, as if it were a punchline. He asked questions I hadn't anticipated, exact dates, who else had been present, whether any conversations had been recorded. I answered as best as I could, my fingers tracing the old scars on my palms as I remembered. 3 phases, he said finally, tapping the pad. Phase 1. Disassemble the public image. You can't argue with a fraud accusation when the evidence is clear. Phase 2. Hit their finances, legally. Expose loans, questionable accounts, consulting invoices that don't add up. Phase 3. Make them accountable in ways that matter. Complaints to licensing boards, civil suits, the police. All of it documented, all of it public when the time is right. How do we go after someone's reputation without becoming the villain? I asked. You don't smear, Frankie said. You publish facts. You document. Let them explain to a judge, and let a journalist write the story. The only thing worse for someone who trades on authenticity than being exposed is being exposed and having no place to hide. We worked until the kitchen lights dimmed and the street lamps outside blinked awake. I told him about the small things, Lily borrowing $3,000 for inventory, then never mentioning it again, Evan using my name as a reference on a loan application without asking, Bree posting staged photos of family dinners that had never happened, tagging me in them for the illusion of warmth. I told him about the forged form I'd found tucked into my legal folder, the way Lily's handwriting looped across the page as if it were just another checklist item. By the time he left, we had a plan and a file thicker than my wallet. Tomorrow, he said at the door, we start phase 1, Lily first. She's the most exposed. Why her? I asked. Because she built a business on trust, he said simply. Her brand is authenticity. People follow her for her story. Remove the story and the audience dries up. If she collapses, Evan and Bree take a harder fall because their whole act relies on credibility. He paused, studying my face. You ready for this? They'd tried to bury me alive. I'd been half buried already, their polite smiles, their staged concern. I was ready, more than ready. I felt a raw kind of energy humming in my chest, the kind that comes when clarity replaces confusion. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. After Frankie left, I didn't tidy up the table. I let the papers sit where they were, a small, ragged altar. I pulled up Lily's Instagram and watched her carefully curated life scroll by. 200,000 followers, posts about gratitude and morning routines, sponsored stories about supplements and breathwork. Her profile called to mind a friend I used to know, the girl who read poetry on our back porch and cried over a good dog. That girl was gone. In her place was a brand, polished and relentless. I spent that night doing the kind of detail work you do when you're trying to prove something to people who already trust each other more than the truth. I compared the text from Lily's original 12-week wellness program to multiple therapist websites and PDFs from licensed practitioners. Paragraph after paragraph, lined up in the way thieves line up their alibis, alter a header here, swap a phrase there, but the structure, the sequence, the exercises were the same. I took screenshots, gathered URLs, captured timestamps. I compiled receipts, emails, invoices, screenshots of Bree's charity posts with links that led nowhere. Evan's loan documents, some of which referenced business ventures that didn't exist, were a tangle of promises. When the work was done, the file felt heavier than it had before. Evidence has a weight to it I didn't expect, like a ledger that measures truth in ink. I slept that night better than I had in months, the way a man sleeps when he has a truth and a sword. Lily was teaching a seminar the next afternoon at a downtown yoga studio. She'd sent me an invite months ago and forgotten to delete me from the list. When I saw the event online, Find Your True Self, an intro to holistic wellness, I felt something like a test. If she was going to preach authenticity, I wanted first-row seats. The studio was small and sunlit, a narrow space with plants in the windows and mats stacked like a neat collection of promises. The attendees were middle-aged women mostly, soft-eyed and damp with the kind of hope that comes with a Saturday class and a new routine. Lily stood at the front in expensive leggings and a softer voice than she used online. She greeted everyone with the practiced warmth of a woman who had turned empathy into currency. "Welcome," she said, scanning the room. "Today we begin a journey of reclaiming what is yours. A 12-week program of breath, movement, journaling, I sat in the back, unassuming, blending into the room the way I'd learned to. I watched her teach, listened to the phrases she used, the gentle transitions, and as she spoke, one by one, the pieces fit into a pattern I recognized. The same phrases, the same exercises I'd compared on my couch late at night appeared in her handouts. A guided meditation she led had the same arc and phrasing as one I'd read in a PDF by a licensed therapist in Boston. The journaling prompts were lifted almost verbatim from a counseling workbook published years earlier. After the breathing exercise, while everyone else did a slow stretch, I slid into the aisle and waited until the class broke into murmurs and tea. Lily was surrounded by the soft glow of her clients' admiration, receipts of the life she'd sold them. I approached her like a man with a question at a PTA meeting, plain, polite, but with an undercurrent you could feel. "Lily," I said quietly, just loud enough for her to hear. She turned, her smile immediate and disarming. "Dad, you made it. Sit. Don't be shy." I didn't sit. "This program, where did you get the exercises for the guided meditations?" She bristled ever so lightly. "They're my own. Years of study, clients' feedback. You, of all people, should be proud." "I compared them," I said, "to other published work. There's a lot of overlap. A lot of it's copied." Her face went a color I'd only seen twice in my life. First time when she was a kid and I'd caught her stealing a pack of gum from the corner store. Second, when her mother asked where she'd gone after she dropped out of college. Now, the color was there in her jaw tightening. "That's ridiculous," she said. "Mr. Cole, people take inspiration." "Inspiration and word-for-word similarity are two different things," I said. "You're charging people for something you didn't create." A woman near the front looked up. "Is there a problem?" she asked, concern rippling outward. Lily's smile, the practiced one, snapped into place. "Danny and I are just having a private conversation," she said, voice edged. "This is not the time." "It is," I said. "You offered a program, you took money for it, and you passed off other people's work as your own. That's plagiarism." She stepped back, grip tightening on the handout in her hands. "How dare you? Give me one good reason you decided to have my name on your documents and my address listed as an emergency contact last month without asking me," I said. "Explain why you had a form filled to declare me incompetent tucked into my legal folder. Explain why Evan emailed you about selling my apartment." The room fell into a kind of stunned collectiveness. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." A young man near the door recorded us with his phone, probably thinking this was the kind of revelation that would make him internet famous for a minute. Lily's eyes flicked to the ceiling, looking for an exit strategy that wasn't righteous indignation. This is a family matter," she stammered. "We were worried about him. We care about his safety." "You were planning to profit," I said, "from my being taken away. Telling people you will take advantage of someone else. That's a heavy accusation," she said, trying to control her breath. "It's an accusation," I agreed. "And I have evidence. I'll share it. Here. Now." I took from my jacket the printouts I'd prepared, screenshots, side-by-side comparisons, the email threads. As I laid them on a small table, the woman who'd asked if there was a problem leaned over, her face going from interested to horrified. Lily's face flushed red. "You wouldn't—" "I would," I said, "because you wouldn't give me a voice at your wedding when Andrew threw glass at me. Because you thought I was a problem to be solved instead of a man to be talked to. Because my place is my home, and you don't get to decide its fate." Word traveled fast in a yoga studio. Phones came out, whispered conversations broke into more substantive ones. A woman I later learned had paid for a consultation in cash, $250, took my stack of comparisons and read. Her hand shook. "My therapist sent me a version of this last year," she said. "It's the same. I can't believe—" Lily's voice wavered. "This is slander." "You tell that to the licensing board if you want," I said. "But these documents? These are screenshots from your site. Here are the original sources. Here's the email where Evan suggested selling my apartment. I didn't make any of this up. She grabbed at them then, fingers frantic, as if the papers were hot. You are trying to ruin me, she hissed. This is family. It's exploitation, I said, and people who exploit others for money should not be trusted with people's health. She called for the studio owner, voice sharp like a whip. He arrived 2 minutes later, polite and apologetic, attempting to diffuse the scene as if it were an awkward couple's spat rather than a shadow of a much uglier thing. Sir, perhaps you should leave. We don't allow disruptions. I looked at the assembled faces, women who'd come for calm, for betterment, now looking at me like a villain for tearing at a seam they hadn't noticed. I felt a twinge of doubt then, a small animal in my chest asking whether I was right to unmake someone's reputation in front of strangers. But then I remembered the paper clipped to my legal folder, the email that outlined a sale, and the look on Evan's face when he thought he'd won. The doubt dissolved like steam. I'm not leaving until the people here understand what they paid for, I said. If you want to call the police, call them. If you want to hear the truth, listen. By the time I left the studio, I had 3 people offering to share their experiences. One woman who'd paid for private coaching and said she'd been ghosted when she asked for a refund, and a young man who handed me a flyer he'd found on a wellness forum that quoted one of the original sources Lily had used, dated 2 years before Lily's program existed. He'd already taken a picture and sent it to a friend at a local blog. I walked out with a folder that felt both lighter and heavier. Light because it finally held what I needed, not vengeance exactly, but a weaponized truth. Heavy because the act of exposing a child felt like pulling off a bandage you knew would bleed. Back at my apartment, Frankie was waiting like he always did, coffee gone cold, brow furrowed. I laid the new testimonies and the studio woman's card on the table. Frankie read, his jaw tightening, then relaxed into that half-smile that makes him look older and balder than he really is. Good, he said. People are talking. That's the thing about a brand like hers. If people stop believing in it, the house of cards falls fast. You think this will be enough? I asked. Not alone, he said. But it's a start. We get the blog to pick it up, maybe a local paper. Once a journalist smells this, they'll dig. And once they dig, you've got institutions on your side. Licensing boards, consumer protection groups, pieces of paper that mean more than a man's rage. We spent the evening drawing up a modest, clean timeline. Dates, facts, sources. No hyperbole, no threats, just evidence, with names and times and receipts. Frankie made a few calls, old contacts from union days who knew reporters, a cousin he'd once helped, who worked in small-town journalism. I typed up a short, factual letter, enclosed scans, and sent it to an address Frankie suggested, the kind that didn't scream, "Pay me," but whispered, "Investigate." That night, as I lay in bed with the house quiet around me, I thought about the idea of family. I remembered a yard with a tire swing and a little girl who learned to ride a bike, knees scraped and cheeks bright with triumph. I remembered the night Lily was born, the thin cry she made that somehow rearranged everything in me like a new room in the house. None of that was gone, but it had been rearranged by choices and selfishness. This wasn't just about a condo or some money. It was about the fact that those who had sworn to care for me had made a plan to disappear me like a stain. If I was to fight, I would do it with the precision of a man used to fixing things. I would pry the truth apart and hand it to the people who could make it matter. I would do it without lies, because lies were what got me here in the first place. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring out. Then another. An editor at the local paper, curious. A few hours later, the blog picked it up. Lily's follower count dipped by the hundreds as comments multiplied like cracks in glass. People were angry. People were hurt. Within a week, a small but steady rain of messages hit my inbox. testimonials from clients, legal contacts asking for more documentation, and a name I hadn't expected, Evans' firm. A human resources rep requesting a meeting about an internal matter. It was the sort of slow-acting, administrative pressure that doesn't make headlines but turns boardrooms cold. It wasn't the decisive victory I'd dreamed of in that first flush of rage. It was quieter. Papers filed, phone calls, formal letters. But there was motion, and motion meant consequences. It meant sleepless nights for them, phone calls from people who wanted their money back, conversations with lawyers about fraud. It meant a kind of worry that could not be fixed with an influencer post or a staged photograph. They were indeed getting small and helpless, but not because I wanted them to be ruined for sport. I wanted them to account for what they'd tried to do to me. Still, even as the pieces fell into place, I knew this was only the beginning. Frankie and I would have to prepare for counters, lawyers with better suits, social media storms, the kind of fury that comes when someone with a polished image is exposed. I'd practiced humility for years. Now I had to practice standing firm under scrutiny. When the calls started again, this time from numbers I recognized but hadn't wanted to hear from, Evan's now sobering voice, Lily's half-apologetic lawyerly tone, I let them go to voicemail. I opened each message later, like a man opening envelopes from a past life. Demands, threats, thinly veiled as concern. One real apology when Evan's voice cracked and he said, "Dad, I didn't think," and then stopped, because he didn't know how to make what he'd done make sense. I didn't pick up the phone. I had work to do, evidence to organize, witnesses to meet, people who had been sold something false to console and protect. The fight I had decided to wage was not one that would be won by a moment of rage on a dance floor. It would be a slow, meticulous unmaking. And I was older, yes, and limped, and sometimes the night felt too quiet, but I had a stubbornness that came with age and repair. You learn to fix things that matter by taking them apart and putting them back better. That's what I intended to do with this life they'd tried to steal. The yoga studio was in a converted warehouse, exposed brick, hardwood floors, that particular smell of incense and expensive candles. About 40 people sat on mats arranged in a circle. Lily stood in the center, microphone clipped to her collar, wearing white again. I slipped in through the back and sat on an empty mat. She didn't notice me at first. She was mid-speech, talking about reclaiming your inner truth, or some similar nonsense. People were nodding, taking notes. Then she saw me. She stumbled over a word, recovered, kept talking, but her eyes kept flicking back to where I sat. I waited. Let her finish her current thought. Then I raised my hand. "Dad," she said, voice bright. "Fake. What a wonderful surprise." "I have a question," I said. "Of course, that's what we're here for. Your 12-week program, the one you're teaching today. Did you write that yourself?" The room went quiet. Lily's smile tightened. "Yes, I created it based on years of study and personal experience." "Study where?" "Various sources, books, workshops." "Which books?" Her face was starting to flush. "Dad, maybe we can talk after." I pulled out my phone. "Because I found something interesting last night. Your whole program, the exercises, the language, even the weekly themes, matches almost exactly with a program created by Dr. Sarah Chen in 2018, and another one by Dr. Michael Torres in 2020, and sections from a therapist named Jennifer White." I held up my phone, showing the comparison screenshots. "You didn't create anything. You copied it, changed the names, swapped some words around. But it's plagiarism." Lily's face went from flushed to pale. "That's not... all wellness work builds on established..." "This isn't building. This is stealing." I looked at the people around me. "She's charging you for work that isn't hers, material she has no license to teach, and she's calling it authentic." Someone in the back pulled out their phone and started filming. Lily's voice cracked. "Dad, please, you don't understand." "I understand you stole from these people. I understand you're running a scam." I stood up, my hip protesting. And I understand you tried to steal from me, too. So maybe everyone here should know what kind of person they're learning authenticity from. I walked out, didn't look back. Behind me, I could hear people talking, voices rising. Lily trying to regain control. She wouldn't. The damage was done. By tonight, those videos would be everywhere. I drove home feeling something close to satisfaction. That feeling lasted about 6 hours. I was in the building basement checking the boiler when I heard footsteps on the stairs. Heavy, fast, angry. Andrew. He came around the corner, eyes wild. He'd been drinking. I could smell it from 10 feet away. You destroyed her, he said. She destroyed herself. Everything she built. Gone. Because of you. He moved closer. You need to fix this. I need to fix her lying? You need to shut your mouth. He grabbed my shirt, pulled me close. I'm warning you, old man. Take back what you said. Apologize. Make it right. I looked at his hand on my shirt, then at his face. Or what? Or I'll... I moved faster than he expected, grabbed his wrist, twisted, stepped to the side. He stumbled forward and I guided him into the wall. Not hard, just enough to pin him there, his arm bent behind him. My hip screamed, but I kept him pressed against the concrete. Throw something at me again, I said quietly. Touch me again. Threaten me again, and I'll break your arm right here. He was breathing hard, scared now. You think I'm weak because I'm old? I was an electrician for 30 years. I worked live wires in 100-degree attics. I fell 15 feet onto concrete and walked away with a limp. You're a drunk who married my daughter for her potential income. I leaned closer. I'm not afraid of you. I let him go. He stayed against the wall, rubbing his wrist. The POA, he said. The plan to sell your place. That was Bree. I hadn't expected that. What? She came up with it, convinced Evan, got Lily on board, said it was the only way to get Evan started right. He looked at me, something desperate in his eyes. I just went along with it. That's not better, Andrew. I know. He slid down to sit on the floor. But if you're going after someone, go after the right person. I left him there, walked back upstairs to my apartment, locked the door, sat down. Bree. I'd known she was cold. I hadn't known she was the architect. I called Frankie. Need to shift focus, I said. It's Bree. She's running everything. You sure? Andrew just confessed. Silence. Then, okay, time for phase 2. Bree's whole identity was built on appearances. Perfect marriage, perfect home, perfect life broadcasted to 50,000 Instagram followers. She posted 3 times a day, stories constantly, ads for yoga mats and meal kits and skincare, everything curated, everything fake. Frankie and I spent 3 days gathering ammunition. The charity work she claimed, we found the bank account, shell organization, no donations going out, just money coming in that she spent on clothes and restaurants. The perfect marriage posts. We had photos from the wedding of her screaming at Evan in the parking lot, her face twisted with rage. The family values content. We had the email chain about erasing me for profit. Then Frankie found something even better. Her parents, he said, showing me a background check. Tragic accident. Very sad. Except they're alive, living in Florida. She cut them off 7 years ago. Why? Because they're working class. Her dad was a mechanic. Her mom cleaned houses. Didn't fit the image. Frankie smiled. And according to the investigator I hired, they've been trying to contact her for years. How is that useful? Because I called them, told them their daughter's getting married, which they already knew from social media, and asked if they wanted to send a message. Her mom broke down crying, gave me a whole speech about how they love her anyway, how they're proud despite everything. He pulled out his phone, showed me a video file. Watch. It was Bree's mother, sweet-faced, 60-something, sitting in a modest living room, talking about her daughter, about feeling abandoned, about the lies Bree told, about wondering what they did wrong. She gave you this? I explained the situation, told her Bree tried to abuse another elderly person. She wanted to help. Frankie looked at me. You ready to burn her brand down? We started small. I created an anonymous account, posted the charity information with documentation, no accusations, just facts and bank statements. Within 6 hours, people were commenting, questioning. Her sponsors, the meal kit company, the skincare line, started asking questions. Next day, I sent the wedding parking lot photos to a gossip blogger who covered influencer culture. She posted them with the caption, "When the camera's off." Bree's comments filled with people calling her fake, performative, a fraud. Then we escalated. Frankie sent the video of Bree's mother to 3 major news sites covering social media. 2 ignored it. That went viral. Her follower count started dropping. Fast. Hundreds, then thousands. Sponsors pulled their deals. The comments turned vicious. But we weren't done. I sent Evan a text from a burner phone. Simple message. Ask your wife where the charity money went. Then I sent Bree a text from a different number. Your husband knows about the Florida house you looked at without telling him. I didn't know about any Florida house, but people with secrets always think you know more than you do. 20 minutes later, my real phone rang. Evan. What did you say to Bree? I didn't say anything to Bree. She's screaming about Florida, about money, says you're trying to ruin us. I'm not trying anything, I'm just existing. If that ruins you, maybe examine your choices. He hung up. An hour later, someone in Evan and Bree's building posted a video on Twitter. The 2 of them in their lobby, shouting at each other. Bree yelling about trust, Evan demanding answers about bank accounts, both of them too angry to notice neighbors filming. The video had 300,000 views by morning. Lily called me that night. I let it go to voicemail. Dad, please. Everything's falling apart. Bree's sponsors dropped her. Evan's firm put him on suspension. My clients are demanding refunds. We made a mistake. We're sorry. Please stop. I deleted the message. They weren't sorry. They were caught. There's a difference. The next morning, I woke up to find my building's front door covered in spray paint. Red letters. Abuser. The cameras Frankie had installed caught everything. Evan, at 3 a.m, drunk, with a can of paint. His face clear in the infrared footage. I called the police, filed a report, made sure to mention Evan's name and his firm. By noon, Evan's suspension had become a termination. By evening, Lily's wellness website was down. Too many complaints, I guessed. By midnight, Bree had made her Instagram private. I sat in my apartment and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret. Just a kind of cold certainty. They'd tried to erase me. Now I was erasing them. And I wasn't finished. They came for the apartment on a Tuesday. I'd been expecting it. Frankie had warned me. Desperate people do desperate things. So we'd prepared. He'd reinforced my door, added cameras inside and outside my unit, set up a recording system that would stream everything to cloud storage, made sure I had documentation of my competency, bank statements showing on-time rent, paid bills, clean health records from my doctor. If they try anything physical, call 911 immediately, he'd said. But they won't. They're not brave enough for that. He was right. They tried something worse. Bree showed up first, then Evan, then Lily. Andrew wasn't with them. I guessed he'd smartened up or sobered up or both. They knocked on my door at 10 a.m, polite, professional. I opened it. Dad, Lily said. She looked terrible, hair unwashed, circles under her eyes. We need to talk. About? About everything, about making this right. I looked past her at Evan and Bree. Bree was filming on her phone. Come in, I said. They did. All 3 of them. Bree kept her phone up, pointed at me. What's the camera for? I asked. Documentation, Bree said. We want everything on record. Fine with me. They sat on my couch. I stayed standing. Bad hip made it easier anyway. Dad, Evan started. "We're worried about you." "I'm fine." "But you're not acting fine. The wedding incident, destroying Lily's business, calling the police on me." He spread his hands. "These aren't the actions of someone thinking clearly." I smiled. "No, these are the actions of someone who found out his children were trying to steal his home." "We weren't stealing." "What were you doing?" Lily leaned forward. "We were trying to protect you. This building's falling apart. You can barely manage the stairs. I live on the ground floor. But for how long? What happens when you fall? When you can't work anymore?" Her voice went soft, sympathetic. "We found a beautiful place, safe, with people to help you. A place that costs $8,000 a month while you sell my apartment for $400,000 and split the money." I looked at Bree. "That was your idea, right?" Bree's camera hand wavered. "You don't know." "I know everything. I have the emails, the forged POA, Andrew's confession, all of it." "Then you know we're trying to help," Evan said. "By committing fraud? By getting ahead of a problem before it's too late." His voice had risen. Bree's camera caught it all. I walked to my desk, pulled out a folder, handed it to Evan. "What's this?" "Competency evaluation from Dr. Stevens at Metro Medical. Done last week. Full cognitive assessment. I passed everything." I pointed at the folder. Memory, reasoning, decision-making, daily functioning, all normal, all documented. Evan opened it, read. His face went pale. "You planned this." I protected myself. Bree stood up, phone still recording. "This is abuse. You're manipulating us." "I'm preventing you from manipulating me." "We're your children. Then act like it." The room went silent. Somewhere in the building, a pipe knocked. The radiator hissed. "You threw a glass at me," I said to no one in particular. "You slapped me at your wedding. You forged legal documents. You planned to have me declared incompetent so you could sell my home. And now you're here, filming, trying to make me look unstable so you can use it against me later." I looked at each of them. Did I miss anything? Nobody answered. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "You're going to leave. You're going to stop contacting me. You're going to destroy any forged documents with my name on them. And you're going to move on with your lives." "Or what?" Bree said. "Or I take everything I have to the police, the DA, every news outlet in the city. I make sure everyone knows exactly what you tried to do." "You wouldn't," Lily whispered. "Watch me." Evan stood. He was shaking. "You're not our father anymore." "Good. Then you're not my problem." Bree stepped toward me, fast, angry, reached for my keys on the counter. I moved faster, slammed my hand on the wall next to her head, didn't touch her, didn't have to. The sound made her jump back. "Don't," I said quietly. She looked at me, really looked, and saw something that scared her. "Frankie's outside," I said. "Licensed security contractor, witness to all of this. You touch me, you grab anything in this apartment, you do anything except walk out that door, and I'll have you arrested for assault and attempted robbery." "You're insane," Bree said. "No, I'm awake." They left. Lily crying, Evan rigid with rage, Bree still filming, trying to get some final shot she could spin later. I locked the door behind them, stood there for a minute. Then I called Frankie. "It's done," I said. "You okay?" "Yeah. They'll try again." "I know." But for the moment, I was alone in my apartment, safe, still here, still standing. Evan called me 2 days later. His voice was calm, too calm. "Dad, can we talk? Just you and me." "About?" "Ending this. Finding a way forward. Please." I thought about saying no, but I wanted to hear what he'd say, what final card he thought he could play. "Where?" "My office parking lot. Tomorrow, noon. Public place. Safe." That should have been my first warning. The word safe. People only say that when things aren't. But I went anyway. Frankie wanted to come. I told him no. This was between me and my son. One last conversation before we went our separate ways forever. The parking lot was behind a glass office building downtown. Expensive cars, security cameras on every corner. Evan stood by his Audi looking at his phone. I parked 3 spaces away, got out slow. My hip was bad that morning. Evan looked up, smiled, walked over. "Thanks for coming," he said. "What do you want, Evan?" "I want to understand what we did that was so terrible. We were trying to help. You were trying to help yourselves. Mom would have wanted us to look out for you." That's when I knew. When he brought up Maria, my wife, their mother, provoke me, make me react. I stayed calm. "Your mother would have been ashamed of you." His smile dropped. "Don't. She raised you better than this. You don't know what she would have wanted. I was married to her for 30 years. I think I know." His phone was still in his hand, angled toward me. Recording. "You're trying to get me on video," I said, saying something angry, something you can use. "I'm trying to have a conversation." "No, you're trying to create evidence that I'm unstable, that I'm a danger. One last attempt to justify what you did." He stepped closer. "You destroyed Bree's career, got me fired, ruined Lily's business." "I exposed fraud? There's a difference. You're a bitter old man who can't stand seeing his children succeed. You're a thief who got caught." He grabbed my jacket, pulled me close, right in front of the camera. "Say that again." I didn't fight, didn't pull away, just looked at him. "You're a thief. You forged my signature, planned to steal my home, and when you got caught, you tried to make me the villain." He shoved me back. I stumbled, caught myself on his car. Perfect. The security cameras had caught everything. Him grabbing me, shoving me, while I stayed calm and stated facts. I pulled out my own phone, started recording too. "Tell me, Evan, when did you decide I was disposable? When your mother died? When you realized my apartment was worth money? When Bree told you I was just an obstacle?" "Shut up." "Or was it when you were younger? When you realized having a superintendent for a father was embarrassing? When you learned to be ashamed of where you came from?" I said, "Shut up." He came at me again. I was ready this time. Stepped aside, used his momentum against him, guided him down onto the hood of his car. Pinned his arm behind his back, not violently, controlled, the way I'd done with Andrew. "Listen carefully," I said into his ear. "You tried to bury me alive. You tried to erase me. You forgot who taught you how to work, how to plan, how to think ahead." I pressed his face against the cold metal. "You forgot who taught you how to dig." I let him go, stepped back. He rolled off the hood, breathing hard, tears on his face now, rage and shame and something broken. "I hate you," he said. "That's fine. I don't love you either." He broke then, really broke, slid down to sit on the pavement, head in his hands, sobbing. All the anger drained out. Just a man who'd destroyed everything and finally realized it. People were coming out of the building now, drawn by the commotion, phones out, filming. I looked at the cameras, at the witnesses, at Evan crying on the ground. "My son tried to commit elder fraud against me," I said clearly. "He forged legal documents to steal my home. When that failed, he attempted to provoke me into violence so he could use it against me. Everything you just saw is assault on his part. Everything I did was self-defense." I looked down at Evan. "You're not my son. You're just a bill I finally decided to stop paying." I walked to my truck, got in, started the engine. Behind me, I could hear sirens. Someone had called the police, they'd take statements, review camera footage. Evan would try to spin it, but the truth was on video, clear, undeniable. I drove home, parked in my usual spot, walked into my building, unlocked my apartment door. Inside, I sat at my kitchen table, same place I'd sat the night after the dinner, after the glass, After I'd learned what they'd planned. My phone buzzed. Frankie. You okay? Yeah. Police want a statement. I'll give them one. It's over, Danny. I know. I hung up, sat in the silence. They'd tried to make me disappear. Instead, they'd disappeared themselves. Lily's business gone, Evan's job gone, Bree's sponsors gone, Andrew drinking himself into whatever came next. I'd won. But winning felt like losing something too, like watching the people you raised become strangers, then becoming a stranger yourself to fight them. My hip ached. My ear had a scar now. I was tired in a way that had nothing to do with age. But I was still here, still in my apartment, still standing, and that would have to be enough. Outside, the city moved on. Somewhere, my children were dealing with the consequences of their choices. Somewhere, Frankie was handling the legal aftermath. Somewhere, life was continuing. In here, in my small ground floor unit with the pipes that knocked and the radiator that hissed, I was finally, completely, alone. I poured myself a whiskey, raised the glass to nothing. Here's to the last bill, I said to the empty room. Then I drank it down and waited for whatever came next.